Right, this time around we have both the Samsung Galaxy Z Flip 7 and the book-style Fold 7. We'll be taking a really close look at it, unboxing it, and comparing it to the Samsung Fold 5 and the Fold 6 as well. Well, just to experience every improvement and progress Samsung's made, especially on this thinner and lighter Galaxy Z Fold 7. Right, the first thing I've noticed this time around is this blue color. They're calling it Blue Shadow. Well, you do have a safer black and silver, but my personal favorite is definitely this mint light green color. Right, let's dive right into the Fold 7. So the thickness of it is measured at only 4.2mm when it's unfolded. The key is, how does it compare to the last gen Fold 6? The Fold 7 is now 1.4mm thinner when it's unfolded compared to the last gen Fold 6. It might not be a day and night difference on papers, but I'm pretty sure you will be able to tell the difference by looking at it and holding it in your hands. And you're right, we've definitely got the wow factor here by looking at the side profile. The Fold 7 is now as thin as a USB-C port, and it's barely housing a fingerprint sensor which is mounted on the side of the phone. The good news is, despite the narrow form factor, the fingerprint sensor works. And here you can see and compare the fingerprint sensor on the Flip 7 and the one on the Fold 7. It seems to me that they're sharing the same hardware, though you will see there are plenty of room left on the Flip 7, while on the Fold 7 it's barely housing it. Alright, back to the Fold 7, and here's the dimensions when it's folded. The thickness, well, shall we say the thinness of it is down from 13.4mm on Fold 5 to 12.1 on last year's Fold 7 to this year's 8.9mm, which is exactly the same figures which we've found on the Oppo Find N5, and on the Honor Magic V5 is a little bit tricky. The white variant of it comes in 8.8mm, while the rest comes in 9mm, which will be thicker than the Fold 7. I would say though it's really hard to tell the difference when it's come to 0.1mm. And it will also be the case when it comes to the weight. The Samsung's now taking the crown of being the lightest large-size foldable by beating the Honor Magic V5 by just 2 grams. In just 2 years, Samsung managed to bring down the thickness by 4.5mm, and they've taken almost 40 grams out of the phone, and it's 38 grams lighter than the Fold 5 to be exact. Doing all these while keeping the same 4400 mAh battery is definitely not the largest battery capacity on the market right now on a foldable, but at least we are not getting an even smaller battery due to the thinness and the lightness of it. While what Samsung's doing here definitely worth our applause. The Galaxy Z Fold 7 is now almost as thin as a normal smartphone. 8.9mm compared to 8.2 on the S25 Ultra. That's almost indistinguishable. And it's even 3 grams lighter than the S25 Ultra as we're comparing 215 to 218 grams. Though the trade-offs are, we're not getting the 5x periscope zoom lens as well as we're getting a slightly smaller battery when it's compared to the S25 Ultra. Right, what we will be getting though is a 6.5-inch 21:9 Ultra display. It's now both larger and wider compared to the Fold 6, especially the Fold 5, as we're now looking at a 6.2-inch 23.1:9 narrow display on the Fold 5. They did widen it by a few millimeters to 6.3 inches last year. It was fine and it was better compared to the Fold 5, but it wasn't even close to a regular normal smartphone when it comes to a typing experience on this Ultra display. Now they've sorted it out. And if we compare this 21:9 6.5 inches display to the 6.9 inches 19.5:9 display on the S25 Ultra, now they both have L1 certification on Netflix and the capability of playing back HDR10 video. And now that's actually quite interesting if you're watching quite a lot of 21:9 movies on Netflix. You will be getting a pretty similar screen size across the Fold 7 Ultra display and the S25 Ultra. But if you do zoom in to utilize the entire 19.5:9 display on the S25 Ultra, that's a larger display, without a doubt. What about the main display, the inner display on the Fold 7? That's much closer, though you will be getting a huge black bar on both the top and the bottom part of the display. In this case, I personally tend to believe that having a large display, especially with this square-ish ratio, the meaning of it could be playing back a 21:9 movie on half of the screen and opening another app on the bottom part of it. Now we are getting a larger 8 inches inner display on the Fold 7 compared to 7.6 inches on the Fold 6 and Fold 5 as well. Now with the larger inner display, here on the Fold 7 with the latest One UI 8 interface, it now actually allows us to activate this multi-window for all app settings. Right, so swiping up from the bottom end of the display, here we can drag a favorite app or recent apps. Right, so this is the ordinary multi-window split screen view, and here we can drag another app from the taskbar. Let's try putting it to the right side and the left side. Right, so it has a flexibility of opening another app, splitting half of the display into a quarter display view. Right, can we further open the fourth app? Right, so that's the limitation we have at the moment. The good news is we can open the fourth app and more as floating windows floating on top of those multi-windows. So if you're really into multitasking, this could be one of the reasons why you should be getting a foldable, the large size foldable. But me personally, almost never open more than two apps simultaneously. Video editing on the go, on the other hand, will be something what I really enjoy, interacting with the interface on this 8 inches, almost square-like display. Right, as you might have already noticed, the under-display tag is now gone on the Fold 7. So now we will be getting a hole punch on the camera, similar to everything else on the market. But here's the catch, the hole punch here on the Fold 7's inner display is actually slightly larger than the one on the S25 Ultra. And that's interesting, knowing that the selfie camera on the S25 Ultra is actually 12 megapixels and the one here on the Fold 7 is just 10 megapixels. So why is it? So we've got 26mm field of view on the front-facing camera on the S25 Ultra, while the one here on the Fold 7's actually got 18mm of ultra-wide field of view, so maybe that's why. It could be handy for those who do quite a lot of Zooms and Google Meet. Finally, we've got 4K 60 frames per second video recording on the front-facing camera on the inner display. Now let's talk about the Crease and the Hinge. So I've tested quite a lot of foldable phones, and those from Samsung, particularly starting from the Fold 4, they do have an impression of being extremely strong and sturdy. Now the Fold 7 is more than 25% thinner than the Fold 6 and 33.5% thinner than the Fold 5 to be exact. So that's more than 1/3 of a phone. Is it possible for them to build a hinge and a mechanism that's coming with the same level of sturdiness and durability? That would be my true question. Now, what about trying to get the smallest angle? It's still there. The only thing that's literally holding it back and together is the magnet and not the hinge. The hinge is strong. Now let's try to open it and get the largest possible angle out of this hinge. Right, so 4.2mm, it's really thin. Will it be too thin? Now, based on my experience, my fingers and skin, and Hong Kong's a humid place, I personally find that's not a problem opening this phone, mainly thanks to the more squarish and boxy design and the completely flat sides. Now we have the Fold 6, a really strong and sturdy hinge. The Fold 7, it does feel identically strong and sturdy, and this will be the largest angle we will be able to get on the Fold 7. Now Samsung's really done a really great job here. The sturdiness and the smoothness of the hinge is identical to the one on the Fold 6, which was a much thicker device. Now what about doing a stress test? Once again, the phone is measured at 4.2mm when it's unfolded, and the metal frame here uses aluminium, not titanium on the Ultra. The good news is the rigidness of the phone overall is really strong. Everything's holding in place. Let's try to apply more force into the hinge and the phone. The durability and the sturdiness of this hinge should be A+. Now the Crease, it is reported that the ultra-thin glass here on the Fold 7 is 50% thicker than the one on the previous generation, and that results in an even more invisible crease in the middle of the display. And here's how it actually looks like in real life. I'm pretty sure it was a deal breaker for some, having a crease in the middle of the display. I wouldn't say it's completely gone in this generation, but it's almost invisible now, even with all the light sets and harsh lighting here, with a dark and even black display. Now this is how it looks like on the last generation, and this is the Fold 6. It was definitely more noticeable when the screen is turned off, and it's almost invisible when the display is on and there's some bright content playing. And here on the Fold 7, it's really challenging to find that crease, especially when the screen is on. So just don't look for it, and it's really hard to find it even if you look for it. All in all, the Fold 7 certainly has one of the best, if not the absolute best, hinge and crease control on the market at the moment. But we are losing S Pen support this year, unfortunately. Now, this is also worth mentioning. The phone's chassis itself, yes, it is thin and light. The camera bump there, yes, it is also still there. It's not protruding at an impractical amount, but in the end it still wobbles on a flat surface. But it seems to me that it's solvable, turning it around to the horizontal landscape orientation. Now it's unexpectedly stable. Last but not least, Galaxy AI and Gemini support. You will be getting the full set of Galaxy AI features here on the Galaxy Fold 7 and the Flip 7. There are a few new features that's worth mentioning here. It should be the same across all the Galaxy AI features, that Samsung's now utilizing the large 8 inches inner display. Like for browsing assist, now you will be able to translate a foreign language website to your own language, further summarize it in your language, and highlight read aloud actually reads it out in the target language you are translating the original website to. So it's combining read aloud, translation and summary. Doing all these now with a larger 8 inches display on the inner display. On one hand, you will be able to have that highlight read aloud feature on the summary, and on the other hand, you will be reading the original text as well. Right here on the Gallery app, the photo editor. So Samsung used to have one of the best, if not the absolute best again, object eraser. We are getting it here on the Fold 7 as well. But now what we can further do is to preview and compare the final image to the original photo. So that's basically it. Everything you need to know for the Fold 7 when it comes to the hinge, the display and the interface. Now for the performance, the battery and the camera, we'll certainly do a full review and foldable ultimate comparison later on, so stay tuned and don't forget to subscribe. And here on the Fold 7 we have the Snapdragon 8 Elite octa-core version with 12GB of RAM. While here on the Flip 7, the main upgrade, the major update here this year will be the Ultra display. It's now a 4.1 inches all-screen display that wraps all around the cameras, and the bezel is only measured at 1.2mm thin with the same really thin hinge. The sturdiness, durability and the smoothness of the hinge is just on a par with the Fold 7, which will certainly be setting benchmarks for this kind of smaller, foldable, flip-style foldable. Now the inner display is now upgraded to 6.9 inches 21:9. If you still remember the 6.8 inches 21:9 display Xperia phones. Now the Flip 7's got a larger display than that, with the one-of-a-kind hinge we've just mentioned and really impressive crease control here. It's now basically almost invisible if you're not particularly looking for it, and even if you do look for it, it's really hard to find it. Now here it comes to the interesting bit. On the Flip 7 is not running the Snapdragon 8 Elite. Instead, we are getting the Samsung in-house Exynos 2500, which is also a 3nm silicon with 10 cores, and we've got 12GB of RAM on the Flip 7 as well. And the last upgrade we have here on the Fold 7 will be the 200MP main camera, while the extra mile we have here compared to the S25 Edge will be the 3x 10MP telephoto camera. On the contrary, we do have an upgraded 50MP main camera on the Flip 7, while the ultra-wide-angle lens is still the same 12MP one as we've got on the S25, S25 Edge, S25 Plus and the Fold 7. Right, should you buy right away, put it to your shopping list, or skip it? The Fold 7 comes with a really powerful 200MP top-notch main camera, a hinge and crease control that's setting benchmark for foldables, a much wider Ultra display and a larger inner display, thinner and lighter than ever chassis. If you're coming from countries or markets where Honor's, Oppo's and Vivo's foldables are available, you could be thinking Samsung's finally delivering a foldable phone that's comparable to other Chinese manufacturer foldable phones, except it's coming with a slightly smaller battery. What we will be getting on the Fold 7 still is pretty promising. The rigidness and the sturdiness as a whole. Samsung's foldable still leading the market. Samsung's display is definitely just fantastic, and you will be getting the full set of Galaxy AI, which is now utilizing the large 8 inches inner display on the Fold 7. On the other hand, if you're coming from countries or markets where Samsung and Google are practically the only foldable that's available, then Samsung's foldable is definitely the absolute best at the moment, leaving the question to be to or not to go for a foldable.